Okay, welcome
Right,
councillors. Yeah, welcome councillors, and good evening to everybody watching the live stream via Facebook and YouTube. Before we start the meeting, can I call upon the council's chaplain, the Reverend Paul Edmondson, to say a few words?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to begin by honouring the memory of the late Norman Price, who was the mayor's consort when his wife Sheila was mayor of Stratford-upon-Avon in 2001 to 2002. Norman died in December. I invite you to join me, please, in a minute's silence in tribute to him. We send our thoughts to Sheila and all the family. And now a thought for the day. Everyone appreciates generosity. Do not withhold your kindness, even when someone dies. Today is Australia Day, an occasion when we might pause and think about the distance that separates us from our friends. Stratford-upon-Avon is 10,586 miles away from Sydney. But in these days, weeks, months of lockdown, it's just as impossible to visit a friend in Warwick or Leamington Spa as to see someone in Sydney. I hear more and more people expressing boredom and despondency about the pandemic. Most schools remain closed. More and more people we know seem to have caught the virus. People continue to lose loved ones. Everyone appreciates generosity. Do not withhold your kindness, even when someone dies. It's more vital than ever to keep our friendships in good repair, to remind our friends that we're there for each other, and to tell them that we value our friendship. In Shakespeare's The Winter's Tale, we hear about the boyhood friendship of King Leontes and King Polixenes. Although separated by their kingdoms and kept busy with affairs of state, they were able to stay in touch with interchange of gifts, letters, loving embassies, that they seemed to be together, though absent, shook hands as over a vast. Everyone appreciates generosity. Do not withhold your kindness, even when someone dies. We need to be as generous as we can be in this pandemic world of ours. Whether that's a Zoom conversation with someone in Sydney or Melbourne or Kenilworth or Kidderminster, the times in which we live call upon us to be generous. And when we know someone is mourning the death of a loved one, we need especially to go out of our way to be kind. Everyone appreciates generosity. Do not withhold your kindness, even when someone dies. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Town Councillors.
Thank you, Paul. As ever, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right, right, on to the agenda items. The first item on the agenda is to accept apologies for absence. Madam Town Clerk, do we have any apologies for absence?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have apologies from Councillor Chris Wall.
Thank you. Item 2, declaration of items on the agenda. Do we have any declarations of interest? Councillor Dowling.
It's not a declaration of interest, Mr. Mayor. Just a fact that I'm experiencing extremely difficult problems with the technology, and I haven't been able to get a signal hardly any of the time. So if it does go off, accept my apologies now. Thank you.
Okay, noted. Yep. Item 3, to receive any written requests for dispensation for disclosable pecuniary interests. Have we received any requests, Madam Town Clerk?
No, we have not.
Oh, Councillor Foytek.
Sorry, it was I did raise my hand for the point.
Oh, sorry.
Earlier on in the agenda for an interest, and just to say on the community catalyst proposal, just to declare that I'm chair of the Clopton Community Action Group. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Apologies for not spotting your hand. Take it down now, please. Right, so we didn't have any requests, so we don't need to grant any requests. Item 5 is public participation. I'm not aware that we've got any members of the public who wish to speak, but no. In which case, I'll move on to item 6, which is to approve the draft open minutes of the Town Council meeting held on the 24th of November. This was the meeting that I wasn't able to attend, so can I ask Councillor Taylor to lead, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to present the draft open minutes of the Town Council meeting held on the 24th of November 2020. I beg to move.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions on the minutes? In which case, can we vote to accept? And as I mentioned earlier, could we please use real hands to show approval? Yep, that's everybody. Thank you. Item 7 is to approve the open minutes of the Planning Consultative Committee meetings. Can I refer to Councillor Ian Fradgley, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to present the minutes of the Planning Consultative Committee, open minutes 340 to 355 on the 1st of December, open minutes of 356 to 371 on the 15th of December, and draft open minutes 372 to 387 on the 19th of January. I beg to move.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions arising? No, in which case can we have a show of hands to accept and approve? Thank you. Madam Town Clerk, I'm sorry, I just found a note that I made in advance of the meeting about the minutes of the previous Town Council meeting, and I wasn't quite sure whose signature needed to be appended to the minutes. Presumably Councillor Taylor, as I wasn't present. And you will do that for, yeah, thank you.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Okay, item 8 is to adopt the draft open minutes of the Community Services Committee meeting on the 8th of December. Can I refer to Councillor Taylor, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to present the draft open minutes of the Community Services Committee held on the 8th of December 2020 and to adopt the draft open minutes of the Community Service Committee meeting held on the 7th of January 2021. I beg to move.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? In which case, can I have a show of hands, please, to accept? Thank you. Item 9 is to adopt the draft open minutes of the Civic, Heritage and Events Committee meeting held on the 5th of January. Councillor Rolfe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I present the draft open minutes of the Civic, Heritage and Events Committee meeting held on the 5th of January. I beg to move.
Thank you. Any questions arising? No. Can we have a show of hands to adopt? Thank you. Item 10 is to adopt the open minutes of the Finance and Audit Committee meetings on the 17th of November and to adopt the draft open minutes from the 12th of January. Can I refer to Councillor Coles, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to present the open minutes of the Finance and Audit Committee meetings held on the 17th of November 2020 and adopt the draft open minutes of the Finance and Audit Committee meeting held on the 12th of January 2021. I beg to move.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions, bearing in mind that we do have a separate agenda item later in the meeting to discuss the finance position? No questions. Can we have a show of hands, please? Thank you. Item 11, to adopt the notes from the COVID-19 Stratford support meetings held on the 1st of December and the 5th, 12th and 19th of January. Councillor Rolfe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I present the notes of the COVID-19 Stratford support meetings held on the 1st of December, 5th, 12th and 19th of January. I beg to move.
Any comments? In which case, show of hands, please. Thank you. Item 12, to adopt the notes from the Town Centre and Town Traffic Task and Finish Group meetings held on the 21st of December. Councillor Voss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could present the notes from the Town Centre and Town and Traffic and Finish Group meeting held on the 21st of December and ask the Council to adopt and approve.
Thank you. Any questions on the minutes? No. Can we have a show of hands to approve, please? Thank you. Item 13, and can I welcome the Chair of the Youth Council, Aidan Drinkwater, and to adopt the minutes of the Youth Town Council meeting. Aidan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I present the minutes of the meeting of the Stratford-upon-Avon Youth Town Council held on the 10th of December 2020 and the draft minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of January 2021. I beg to move.
Thank you, Aidan. Anybody got any questions arising? Can we have a show of hands to approve and adopt? Thank you. Thank you. Item 14 is to welcome and receive an address from Sally Bannister. Welcome, Sally, to the meeting. Sally is the community engagement manager, the local community engagement manager for the Office of National Statistics, to give us an update on the 2021 census.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, town councillors, for inviting me along. Yes, as you've just said, I'm the community engagement manager for Stratford-upon-Avon, Leamington and Warwick. I'm working alongside the local authorities, Stratford and Warwick, and also the County Council, with the aim to engage, as my title says, with the communities. Because of COVID, obviously engagement has caused really big problems, and I'm relying on sessions like this, like you are, Zoom meetings and one-to-ones, etc., to try and reach the community, because with the census, which will carry on March the 21st, and ONS has invested too much to pull out now. And anyway, part of the thinking is that it is vital, probably more so now, especially going forward when funding will be a little bit more thin on the ground than it had been before. And so local authorities, business, charities, services, care services are all going to rely on the funding that is going to be available. So accurate data from the census will be vital. So my coming along here is, I'm sure you're all very aware of what the census does, is just to say that the census is going ahead, that I am working in the community and would very much like your support to reach on the ground. So I'm trying with key workers to try and filter through down to ground level, people who are unlikely to want to fill in the census or have problems, have language barriers, digital divide. Normally they would have, and also the elderly, of which Stratford-upon-Avon district and Warwick district probably got a higher proportion in the West Midlands. And so that's why I'm here now to say that please contact me if there's anything I can do for you. You can certainly do things for me by using your channels of newsletters, social media, Facebook, to try and put out the word of census. The one thing that is probably a positive in this is that should I be standing in front of a meeting, a parent-teacher group or schools or a community group, that I am ONS, whereas you are trusted members, you are trusted faces that people know. So having the word from you about the census probably carries more weight in the long run, but it's a little bit of a scattergun effect because I have to reach out to everybody here with your own various sort of specialities and your own interests in various communities in the Stratford area. So if there's anything that anybody would like to ask me, I'm very happy to answer.
Can we try and use blue hands, please? Councillor Fradgley. Councillor Ian Fradgley, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sally, I'm certainly, able to help if. Do you have some material that you can email to us all, which we could put out?
I certainly can.
Because we all have contacts in our own wards. So if we want to spread any news out to them about this, and I think it's very important that we do, that we're all operating from the same script, more or less.
Yeah. May I do that through Sarah Summers?
Yes,
yes please. Yes.
Yeah,
thank you.
Certainly do that.
Thank you. Councillor Rolfe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Sally, thank you for that. What's the timeline of the census? When does it start? When does it finish?
The timeline, which is a very valuable question that you've just asked, we have actually been on the ground since autumn, sort of getting ready, getting to meet people. The census itself is on the weekend, the 21st of March is Census Day. But the way the census is going to be operating this year, it's going to be 80%. They're aiming for an 80% online response. It will be online first, but there is an opportunity to request paper questionnaires. There will be paper questionnaires going out to specific areas which have been identified as being maybe elderly, those who are not using digital. For example, the ONS can find out who renews their driving license, for example, online. If they don't and they're using paper, then that immediately kind of highlights that they're less likely to have digital access. So they will automatically receive a paper questionnaire, but paper questionnaires can be requested. The timeline goes as from now, the end of January, we will be seeing a national advertising campaign. So census, the word of census will be on televisions, on billboards, on radio, etc. Going into February, there will be, towards the end of February, the way the census is going to operate is that each family will get, each household, an access code through the post. But before that, they will be getting a notification that the census is going to come online, which is part of the advertising campaign. Then you get your access code, which then enables you, as from the moment that you get your access code, the lines will be open so you can go online to fill out your own census for the household online. There will be web chats. They're ramping up the number of call centre helpers to 500,000. It was half that pre-COVID or before Christmas. So there is support there. There was going to be, and there still are going to be support centres set up with a digital inclusion charity called Good Things Foundation. We haven't actually got many of them in our area, and there were only going to be 1 or 2 of them set up in main areas due to COVID. You know, Warwickshire County Council would have offered its whole front reception, Stratford District Council would have offered reception, etc. Library would have offered. That's not possible. Hence why during the month of March, when anybody can fill out their census form, we're kind of relying on sort of parish councils, town councils, community key workers to help those that they know would have that difficulty. Kate, for example, you know, your community worker, when you would have had sort of people coming to the Rosebud Centre, etc., that would have been a fabulous opportunity. That no longer is now, but maybe just taking yourself, you would perhaps identify people who would have difficulty and so would be able to help, you know, through people, your colleagues, work colleagues, and also family members, trusted individuals can help fill out census forms. So that, and then afterwards, after the weekend of the 21st of March, there will be field officers picking up areas or individuals, households that haven't filled out the form, and will help, in quotes, help them fill out the form or just give them reminders.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Alcock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hello, Sally. Yeah, it was actually about field officers I wanted to ask a question about, because I've seen the advertisements for employing field officers and that. Obviously field officers are there and they're employed to go and help the people who are struggling. Is there a way to either pass on our details to them or their details to us, so we actually have a contact for our area?
Yes, certainly. Well, I will be the contact. The way the field officer is going to work is that there will be another manager who manages the field officers, but I will be in contact with the field officers. So that again is, so just come through me, that will be fine. Yeah, the field officers, just as an addition, they are undergoing COVID training. They will be wearing PPE. But again, not everybody will feel comfortable, especially people who've perhaps been isolating all this time. So come March, and people are probably likely to still be isolating, they might not be so comfortable. So it's really quite important to say that, for example, if somebody is isolating, they can pass on their ID code, their access code, to a family member or a trusted individual to help them fill out the form. That's okay.
Thank you. Councillor Curtis.
Unmute, yes. Mr. Mayor. Yes, it's just a question really about the sort of census itself, really. And I mean, circumstances change all the time, but I'm just wondering, given the very atypical circumstances that many households are experiencing right now and for the next few months, do you think this is going to diminish the value of the census, enabling government, other NGOs to use comparative data, which is, after all, part of the reason for having a census? I just wonder if that's been how that's been taken into account.
Well, that certainly has been flagged up and considered, but again, the more data that can be obtained, and then the kind of, you know, balance that can be pulled out at the end. But on the other hand, the other way of looking at it is, for example, let's say mental health issues. You know, these, I mean, that is a particular sort of scenario, but that again will be flagged up. Transport issues, because work is going to change after, you know, COVID. And so there will be questions there about your normal method of transport, but then also flag up the method of transport that is now. So yes, it will be, in quotes, skewed, because it won't be as it would have been, but then it'll show a new picture. And I believe, or have been told, that this, you know, it is actually vital to get the picture now, and will show, again, for census records going forward, it will be a very interesting evaluation of life at this particular time.
Thanks, Harry.
It's okay.
Councillor Boss.
Yes, hello, Sally, again. I think I always like to try and look a little bit outside the box here, and I want to talk to you, if I may, or ask you about supermarkets, which are going to continue probably to be open. If anything is, it's very unlikely they will ever close, and they're very popular and very busy still. Has anyone considered setting up a format? You mentioned that in normal circumstances, the front end of the county Shire Hall, front end of Elizabeth House will be used. Has anyone considered setting up a similar arrangement in supermarkets where there is an interaction of people, COVID secure, field agents? Field agents used to be known as enumerators in past history, would be able to be there and help in a proper, secure and shielded way using COVID masks and PPE. And this would have, I think, an opportunity for people who've got questions, who feel confident to ask. People who are referred as a trusted individual can go. People can be shown how to use and go online, which sometimes they're not sure of. And you could use the supermarkets as a form also of pushing out more information in advance. These are the places which over a long period of time are going to be open and available to the public. And if they don't want to go in the supermarket, could they do rather as they would be doing in the the polling stations, setting up a COVID secure booth, which people will be voting in, something like this, so that, you know, there is somebody there to help and people feel confident about it.
Yes, hi Richard. Yes, there has been a lot of talk about that, and certainly Sarah Summers has been really quite involved with sort of trying to think out of the box in ways that people can actually on the ground have that face-to-face conversation. The problem, one, with supermarkets is that they don't want people hanging around. And I've had this with libraries as well, that they don't even want a poster in the library because they don't want people stopping. They want people to do literally the grab and go with libraries, to go in and go out. Supermarkets likewise, even in Stratford, they're saying one person from one family to go in, and they don't want people to, you know, hang around in the supermarket premises. So that is actually a bit of a problem for us.
Would you consider a gazebo in the car park? I've seen those set up in the past. I mean, I'm just thinking about where people are likely to go in volume.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, everything needs to be done, doesn't it? As Councillor Curtis says, and you're well aware of, obviously, to ensure that this reaches. And I think you said to me, you've got to hit about 90% for it to be an effective census.
Yes, that's right.
So everything needs to be done. So I think wherever there are opportunities, even if there's some reluctance, as long as it can be shown to be properly invested in terms of COVID secure.
Yeah.
Anyway, a thought.
Thank you for that. That's good ideas.
Councillor Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Sally. That was that's fantastic. Can I just clarify that for those that will receive the access code that aren't able to get online, will they have the facility to request a paper form at that point, or is there any facility for us to bolster your data set if we happen to know someone that definitely won't be able to get online in advance of them receiving it? Are we able to inform you, or is your preferred way that we complete it on their behalf?
I think you won't be able to do it before. They'll have to receive an access code. And those who have already been identified as receiving the paper questionnaire will actually have the access code on the paper questionnaire. So if they're not able even to do the paper questionnaire, the access code can be used for online. That doesn't quite answer what you've asked, but how I'm sorry, just if you could repeat that again.
So I guess if they just get an access code, so you've assumed they're able to go online, but they're not able to. Does that communication have clear steps for them to get assistance?
Yes, that they can actually request a paper questionnaire, or somebody can request it on their behalf.
So I think it's important for us to get the communication out ahead of time, but really they can't do anything until they get that piece of paper.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Councillor Cleave.
Thank you, Sally, as well. That's all very informative. What about people who have obviously different English isn't their first language, or people who are partially sighted and able to read? most of those be identified ahead of time, or will that be something that'll be picked up once
No.
everything's gone out?
Yes, that's picked up when they've gone out. For example, Welcome Here Stratford, obviously Syrians, Kurdish, Arabic, and in Leamington, Iranian languages as well. ONS, or the census, has actually got literature in those languages, many languages, which I didn't know existed. And so, you know, when that has been flagged up to us, I can provide any groups with the literature. But again, let's say take, for example, the Syrians. I'm in contact with that group for the very reasons that you sort of outlined, that it's sort of fall between. So in that case, some of the family members have got good English. So we will rely on the family members. They're English as an additional language teachers, so who they are involved with, and again, a trusted member. So we're going to be relying on those to help them as well. So it's flagging up those opportunities, whereas in the past they might have gone, let's say, bless you, they might have gone to Mason's Road and to the sort of, you know, a coffee meeting there, and then there would have been help there. That's no longer going to be, you know, an opportunity. So we've got to kind of think of the alternatives. One of the things that I've had a great deal of support with, there are 151 parish councils in South Warwickshire, and actually the parish council clerks have been absolutely brilliant, and they're going to muster their kind of volunteers from lockdown number 1. And so again, trusted community members in small parishes will be out there helping people, like you say, visually impaired, or the elderly, or those who are digitally bereft, you know. So there will be those opportunities, but those opportunities will only arise when we can get through to, you know, on the ground, people like yourselves.
That's great. Thank you, Sally.
That's okay.
Councillor Howe, another question.
Yeah, sorry, I just thought of something else. In terms of sort of the live data capture, will we be, if we're if the statistics coming in are saying there's a particularly low turnout in one of our local areas, will we be able to sort of react to that, and will this be monitored so we can kind of jump on it if this occurs?
Absolutely. That's where the field office come up in. And so when, again, with the online, means that there's a much more rapid turnaround of areas where the census isn't being returned quite so quickly. And so that's the field office will feed, or it will be fed down to the area manager who is managing the field offices, and then they will go out into those particular areas. But actually, in some ways, I'm hoping that doesn't happen, because one, I think with the elderly, the vulnerable, the last thing you want is a field officer knocking on your door. So, yeah.
Thank you.
That's okay.
Thank you. Anybody got any other questions? No. In which case, thank you, Sally, for coming along. I think a lot of this will become much clearer once we've actually seen some of the advertising that's going to be going out and some of the literature that you can share. So can you share all your literature and links via Sarah, please, and she'll share it on with us.
And anybody who feels that they've got any questions, just get back to me. I live in Stratford, so I'm around, and that's what my job is, to make sure that everybody understands fully about census.
Yeah, sadly our next town council meeting is the 30th of March, which is going to be too late for an update, but we do have, there's generally a committee meeting every week, so it's possible that perhaps if there were particular issues or we wanted some clarification, we could invite you to one of those committee meetings as a guest, possibly. Yes. Well, just to see how we go, but we'll see how we go. But in the meantime, if you share everything with Sarah, okay, and we'll see how we go. Thank you. And you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you wish. But right, item 15 is to receive a presentation from Julie Crawshaw, Deputy Town Clerk. Julie has been into the meeting a couple of times and has left. I suspect she might be having internet problems, but I wasn't sure whether you'd heard anything or not, because she's not with us at the moment.
No, I haven't, Mr. Mayor, and may I apologise to everyone. The reason I'm off camera is I'm having huge problems with the internet tonight. So I assume that Julie Crawshaw is having the same problem.
Are we okay to defer the item until later in the meeting should Julie come back online? Is that okay?
Yes, you would be able to.
Yeah. Okay, in that case, if we move on to item 16, which is the election of the mayor-elect and the deputy mayor-elect. And we have a proposal to recommend to council that Councillor Kevin Taylor be appointed mayor-elect. Do I have a proposer for that recommendation? Councillor Warren Howells, thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ian Fradley, thank you. Would we all like to vote using real hands, please? Councillor Taylor, you are allowed to vote for yourself. Thank you, that's carried. Congratulations, Councillor Taylor. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow councillors, I'm proud and honoured to be appointed the mayor-elect for 2021-22. My fellow councillors have given me a great privilege and responsibility, and I express my sincere appreciation. Excuse me, for placing your trust in me. I take this responsibility and the trust you have shown very seriously, and I commit to serving to the best of my abilities with enthusiasm, compassion and devotion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. For the election of deputy mayor-elect, can I pass you over to the senior councillor, Councillor Dowling, please, to lead?
Good evening, everybody. Obviously, you all know that I've had terrible trouble with my communications, but I have had two nominations for deputy mayor. Sorry, I've had nominations for Councillor Cleave and Councillor Coles. Now, can I just ask before we go any further, has anybody else nominated themselves that I haven't mentioned now? If so, could you speak now? Okay, Mr. Mayor, those are the two nominations, Councillor Jill Cleave and Councillor Liz Coles. I believe that, oh, hang on a second, I think Liz Coles has got a hand up.
Councillor Coles, do you want to?
Is that this Councillor Coles?
Yeah.
Could I just put it on record that this Councillor Coles doesn't have any interest in being deputy mayor at all?
Well, it was a nomination by another councillor, Councillor Coles.
Well, I appreciate the gesture of trust, but I'm afraid I wouldn't be in a position to take that this year. So if I can unnominate myself, I'd be very grateful.
Okay, thank you very much. In that case, Mr. Mayor, we only have one nomination, unless there are any more now as we speak. And that nomination, or there were actually 7 nominations, for Councillor Jill Cleave.
Thank you. Do we have a formal proposer who wants to?
Well, don't you need to ask Councillor Cleave if she's happy to stand first?
I know in advance that she's happy to stand. Councillor Alcock, you were proposing there, were you?
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor. It's a huge pleasure considering I roped her into this in the first place. Jill, Councillor Cleave, it is a huge pleasure for me to propose you as Deputy Mayor of Stratford-upon-Avon Town Council.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Rolfe, thank you.
It's a huge pleasure for me to second that proposal. Yeah, absolute honour to propose you. Second it.
Thank you. In that case, can we have a show of hands to approve the recommendation? Councillor Cleave, vote for yourself. Thank you, that's carried. And again, Councillor Cleave, congratulations and all the best. And both for yourself and for Councillor Taylor, I hope that there will be some form of normality in your mayoral years. Move away from where we are today. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Right. Cleave, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Cleave, say a few words.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Councillor Cleave, would you like to say a few words? Sorry, yes.
That's fine. Thank you. Thank you to everyone. It is a great honour, as Councillor Alcock just said, and Councillor Rolfe. I mean, they've both been in this position, and I know how hard they worked, and obviously how hard you've worked this year despite lockdown. So obviously it's an honour for me to become Deputy Mayor in May. You know, throughout my life, I've been lucky enough to travel the world and live in many different places, but Stratford-upon-Avon is where my husband and I both chose to make our home back 12 years ago and bring up our daughter. So, you know, we're honoured and privileged to live in this beautiful town with such wonderful friends, neighbours, residents. So it's even more of an honour to become the Deputy Mayor this year, and obviously to support Councillor Kevin Taylor during his term as Mayor. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I ask a question to, we've had an entrant into the meeting, John Morgan. I can't see you, John, but I'm hoping on the basis that Julie can't sort of present, you're her deputy. Is that true, or are you just a member of the public watching?
Member of the public.
Oh, you're a member of the public. Sorry,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
okay. Sorry, I was, yeah, okay. Julie did come back in and has gone out again, so we'll carry on with the meeting and we'll move on to item 17, which is the Town Clerk's open report. And the first item is to receive and consider 3 funding requests. The first one is the Community Catalyst proposal. And can I ask Councillor Foytek to lead on this, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I mean, obviously you've all read the Town Clerk's report, and with that report was the Stratford-upon-Avon Social Inclusion Partnership Community Catalyst proposal, which was quite detailed, and I hope you got some useful sort of information. There were some useful statistics in that as well. So I'll be sort of fairly brief so that there's time for anybody who wants to ask any questions if they want to. The scheme is to support our local communities to bounce back post-COVID-19. This is a chance to make a real difference to people's lives in some of the most deprived communities of the district. It's also vital that this scheme has buy-in from as many stakeholders in Stratford as possible. This then demonstrates to the big lottery after year 1 in an application that it has cross-community support, which strengthens the case for a further 3-year funding project. This potentially could unlock a further £120,000. Therefore, I'm inviting the Town Council to give support financially as well as its goodwill. Yes, as the branch of local government this branch of local government as a town council is so close to the community it represents. The project has also formed a project board with a representative from each community centre, as well as a representative from each organisation that's willing to give financial or practical support. So that's an important sort of buy-in, so that the community worker that hopefully will be employed has that feedback with the rest of the Stratford town community. And your views and opinions will be very welcome. If you have any questions, please fire away.
Thank you, Councillor Foytek. Councillor Rolfe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Foytek, whilst I welcome this, I am slightly concerned that I'm a member of the Rosebird Committee, and it's run by volunteers. I just think it's almost like, well, if you give it to one, you should give it to everyone. The Rosebird Community Centre is run by a group of volunteers. We give back money to the community every year with any profit that we make, and we give to charities and we give to schools. And I would like to see, if this were to go ahead, a much wider inclusion. Although you quite rightly point out that you have the largest areas of deprivation in Bishopton and Clopton, pro rata, we still have areas of deprivation in the south of the town. So I would be slightly uncomfortable agreeing to, if you like, isolating one specific community facility in preference to any of the others. Thank you.
Can I respond to that? Or
yeah, sure, please.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think you've Councillor Rolfe, you've got some concerns there, and I understand that. I suppose there are some sort of differences perhaps to the Rosebud Centre, insofar that the Ken Kennett Centre is a district council building, and the other building, the Bishopton, the Bishopton Community Centre is a Warwickshire County Council building, but also the deprivation is the reason why the Social Inclusion Partnership is giving the residents there the extra help that they need and the deprivation is there for lots of reasons, and that's all sort of detailed in the proposal. Thank you.
Councillor Voss.
So thank you for that. Thank you for the proposal. I've got a series of questions here, and indeed concerns. And I first of all say that I think anything that we can apply ourselves to as a town and other organisations, council and other organisations, to support those who are most disadvantaged in the areas where they are most disadvantaged, we should look at seriously. And in that respect, I want to ask some questions, because I don't have clarity, and I don't actually think, and I'm sorry to say this, that this is a very good report and summary. There are gaps and areas which, in my experience, which I've been involved in grant and fundraising to quite an extensive level in the past, I don't think helps. In the town clerk's report, under paragraph 2, community catalyst proposal, the word improvements used, and in the main report talks about key objectives, but I can't see any measurable improvements that we could judge this by. So I don't know what the key objectives are. It just doesn't say. So I'm concerned that we are going to be looking at funding something at this stage. Now, I'm quite happy for to come back and have another look at it when we have more detail. But as Councillor Fojcik will know, having as a member of the Finance Committee, we've had some very difficult conversations about funding, about shortages of funds, the reserves, having to raise the precept at this very difficult time to cover our income and revenues. So I would like to make sure that whatever we do commit to is very tight. So I would like to know where we can find what these improvements are and where the objectives are, please. I note that the initial proposal is for 1 year, and yet talking about 3-year funding. So if the initial proposal is for 1 year, should we be looking at the whole 3-year funding? There's another question. I'm also concerned about, and it calls it a 1-year pilot, I'm also concerned about the timetable. We have plans to advertise on the 5th of March, interview and selection on the 26th of March, an appointment on the 1st of April. That's 1 week later. In my experience, which is reasonably extensive, for the quality of person you're looking at, staff and salary at 36,000, to expect somebody to give 1 week's notice is almost totally impractical. So I do question at that point whether that's been fully thought through, and it makes me question whether or not we should revisit this and get more detail. I noticed, looking at national lottery funding and other areas as well, and you raised that issue, there are organisations that will provide this kind of support who are professional at doing so, albeit working on a commissionable basis, but it's almost a no-lose situation. They have a proven track record. I haven't seen any of those points made or any of those opportunities talked about. And finally, in the risk, likelihood, impact score mitigation, it says need to be clear in job description and in project governance setup. We haven't seen any of that clarity. So I'm sorry that if I'm looking at this now, I'm not entirely convinced that the detail is there, that I feel confident about giving funds. I should say that I fully support a well-worked proposal that we can see, which has measurable objectives, and we feel confident about delivering those to the most disadvantaged, which is the aim. So I have got concerns on this, and that's, I think, what we're here to discuss. Thank you.
Councillor Foyce, just to let you know that there are 3 other people who want to ask questions. So whether you want to wait until the end to reply to everything, or whether you want to respond to Councillor Voss now, is entirely up to you.
I'll respond just to very quickly to a couple of the points that Councillor Voss has made. In terms of key objectives, it's really important that the objective is focusing on mental well-being in communities, particularly with COVID-19 that's taking place, and also it's about increasing resilience across the community by building on the sort of skills and assets, and that comes from an experienced community worker, which sadly has been lost through over the last 10 years. But and also it's about securing funding for new projects as well. And then pushing these community centres and putting these community centres on a much more sustainable financial footing. So those are some of the objectives that we hope to get out of this. But it is about increasing revenue generation within the centres and it aids their sustainability. Just on the other point of 1 year, 3 year, the 1 year proposal is because funding has been secured from the District Council and Orbit. There is a small shortfall, which we're hoping that will be found through perhaps some money from the County Council as well, the Town Council, and also through the Town Trust. So that's the 1 year project, but the 1 year project is really important to get it going, so that it then allows us of some further time over the next 12 months to actually secure a 3 year project, and that will be through the big lottery. But the bigger buy-in from the community as a whole really is the key to making the whole project sustainable over 3 or 4 years. The risk where you bring up about a job description, this has all been put together in a very, very short period of time, and we probably still need to go back and look at some of the detail, but the essential thing is to get the funding so that we can move forward with this as quickly as possible, because people can't wait once we come out of COVID. This is really important to make sure we hit the ground running in our local communities.
Thank you. Councillor Ian Fradgley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Jason has answered my question. I was wanting to know what alternative funding he was going to pursue in particular places like the Town Trust.
Thank you. Councillor Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a fantastic initiative. I really support this, both sort of personally and within the council. I think we are, in general, it would be a great opportunity for this town council to get involved with and help kind of steer the direction. But I do take on board Councillor Rolfe and Councillor Voss's comments on this, and so I think I wouldn't be in the position, in light of our recent budget deficit and the previous discussions and sort of the fact that this has come up quite recently, I wouldn't be in a position today to support this. But what I would propose instead, and please don't interrupt my other colleagues from talking with this proposal, would to put aside some money within the budget, within a designated reserve, and to sort of defer this issue to the Community Services Committee, which is where it should go, to really give that committee the ability to scrutinise this application further, alongside some additional information from funding from the Town Trust, for example. I think that the Town Trust are doing a fantastic job with sort of other initiatives such as Foundation House, and so they would be my kind of first port of call in terms of the host for this worker, and to connect into the other themes which are very well aligned with your proposal. And so I think I would probably propose to defer this to community services, but to make sure we do have some budget available to spend that within the year without having to go back to the Finance Committee and to this full council. Thank you.
Councillor Alcock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Knowing from experience over the past couple of days just how vital our community centres are going to be when lockdown lifted or some of the restrictions are lifted. So only today I was talking again to somebody who is so alone due to lockdown, recently had a baby. The mental health services are so overwhelmed with people now. It is our community centres that need to step up to be able to help provide these services. This is why I'm backing this 110%, because I know how difficult it is for people to access the places that they need at this current time, and it's not going to get any better. To me, having somebody in the role who is experienced, who has done this before, can really help get the finances, get the funding that is going to be desperately needed, not just in Bishopton Ward, not just in my ward or just in Clopton. It's going to be needed in all the wards, but not all the wards have community centres. Bishopton backs onto Hathaway, as does Avenue, which overlooks with Clopton. To me, getting somebody in to raise these desperately needed funds for the community centre could help so many members of our town who are struggling now. They're struggling now. It's not going to get any better when lockdown lifts. As a town council, I really do feel strongly about this, that this is something that we need to back. We need to find the funding. It's not asking for a huge amount, and I'm sure we can somehow find it that to help put this in place as soon as possible. The sooner we get a person in, the sooner they can start applying for all these different grants, which is hard to do. And if those people can get the grants in, we can start immediately getting places set up to help the residents, the ones who need it the most. So I know it's difficult. We have been really affected by losing income as a town council, but so has 90% of our residents, and they're the ones we need to look at, and they're the ones we need to look at supporting, and our community centres are the way to do that. I would really hope that people would support this.
Thank you. Councillor Dowling. Councillor Dowling, can you unmute, please?
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought I already had. Right, it's a question for the Deputy Town Clerk. In the past, we haven't been able to give grants because of the grants that we received from the Town Trust, except for the 2 grants for the town, for the Christmas lights and for the Stratford in Blue. Can the Deputy Town Clerk clarify that we are actually in a position to be able to award these grants? Because I don't think we are. I think we're restricted because we receive grants from the Town Trust that we're not able to give them out. And I think it's a matter of law, so we probably need to get Phil to clarify that before we go any further. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, would you like me to answer that?
Well, either you or Deputy Town Clerk, yeah, whichever. Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
In the past, we were receiving grants from the Town Trust directly. We've applied for a grant from the Town Trust, and at that time the Town Trust made it clear that if they were giving us grants, then we shouldn't be giving out grants ourselves. However, at this point in time, we don't actually receive any grants from the Town Trust directly.
Thank you. Thank you. That's answered that one.
Thank you. Can I, Councillor Rolfe, you've got your hand up again. I don't want to preclude you from speaking again, but as you've already spoken, I'm going to bump you to the end of the list just in case and give other people an opportunity first. So, Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a terrific project, but I have a few reservations, and I think Councillor Howe's proposal to earmark some sort of reserve whilst we can find further information about this, I'd like it to succeed. And I share Councillor Voss's concerns over having clear targets. And Councillor Fodger, I think having clear targets, it's not, I don't want you to see this, or I don't think they should be seen as some sort of barrier, actually quite the opposite. And I think if there are clear measure, having done a lot of funding applications in the past, if the funding application has clear, smart targets, it really does, they're a tool for success, because they enable the organisation that's delivering on that funding to measure its success, to also put in place measures if things aren't going so well. And if it is successful and you've got benchmarks, targets to measure against, that can really help support future funding applications. So I think that additional bit of information shouldn't be seen as being negative. I think it could actually support the project being more successful for future applications. And obviously, I think the National Lottery would also be an avenue that should be open to you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Cleave.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Absolutely 100% agree with this as a project, that it's definitely needed. Community centres are vital to the heart. As Councillor Alcock said, Hathaway Ward doesn't have any community centres. Our closest is Bishopton. I know from groups that use it, Brownies use both Kenkennet and Bishopton. So many groups use them. Obviously, this has been a difficult year financially for everyone. So just wondering, because I believe Councillor Foyt, you're on the Finance Committee. Did you bring this up in the budget? Because obviously we're discussing the budget in a little bit. Just wondering, was that brought up then? Because obviously our budget, which we're hoping to finalise tonight, was it discussed in that meeting? Because I think it's important. If we can't find it currently within the budget, I think Councillor Howe's point is proposal is another good way of doing it, looking at it through the community group. Can I also just say, obviously, as a member of committee member of Stratford Town Trust, I'm also on the grants committee and deputy chair of that. And I know we've got several grant rounds coming up this year, so it's definitely a project that I'm sure Stratford Town Trust would be very interested in looking at, because that's the sort of projects that the Town Trust look for. So there's also that big option there. But it is absolutely, it's a brilliant proposal. It's just something that obviously we need to look at from a budget point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jenny Fradgley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree. It's the kind of project that we need to be looking at to take community services forward. There's going to be so many cutbacks from county, from district. It is a project that we need to be looking at. The problem is, it's come at a point in our budget setting which makes it extremely difficult, because I haven't been part of those discussions. I believe Councillor Foyt has. But I think it's very tight on making a budget decision this evening. I'm not sure, and perhaps you ought to ask Councillor Cole how this actually might work. I mean, putting some money aside now at a full-time council meeting, will that have an impact on the budget that is going to be proposed in a few minutes? And if it is going to have an impact on that budget that's going to be proposed in a few minutes, do we have to now decide on where that budget sits? Would we have to increase the percentage to cover this? Because I know we've got some very hefty bills to face up to, which we all already have commitments to, and we need to make sure that we actually do stay legal and viable in our finances. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody who hasn't spoken so far who wishes to speak? No. I've got two people who have spoken. Just can you be very brief, both of you, please, if you want to come back on one of any of the points raised? Councillor Rolfe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be brief. Listening to Councillor Foytick's list of objectives, they all apply to the Rosebud. They all apply to a community centre south of the river. We have, you know, proportionally deprivation south of the river. We can't expect people south of the river to travel north of the river. I absolutely think that this liaison, this catalyst person, officer, needs to work with all the community centres to encourage the use of. We hold children's groups, we hold mental health groups at the Rosebud Community Centre. It needs to be included. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Voss again.
Briefly, I hear what Councillor Alcock says, and I think the issue of mental health and isolation are going to be extremely dominant. I would like to think as a town council, we lobby the lead authorities who have influence on that extremely hard. And I heard what Councillor House says, and I think there is a path forward there. What I would like to say is that if the right person is appointed, at the end of year one, results will be seen. And it could be that this project becomes self-funding, i.e. that person has delivered sufficient, when we see what the targets and the objectives are, has delivered sufficient results to sustain for the next, and that's the ambition. I think you were saying, Councillor Foyt, that after a year, if things have moved forward in a positive and effective manner, that will sustain the following 2 or 3 years. So at the end of this year, we would be in a strong position to see positive results, and that any funding could then be looked at in a proper and probably more substantial way at the end of this year. But I suspect that at present, it's a first year that needs to be focused on. And from what you say, and from what I interpret, although it's not fully clear, there seems to be funding available to cover the first year. So Councillor Howe's solution may well be a sort of safety net, but I am concerned that we need to see a great deal more detail. Although it was put together, as you say, in a hurry, that doesn't necessarily help. We could refer to the community services and could bring it back to town council as a future date, which wouldn't inhibit the development of the project, given the fact you've got some funding already, and that would take you through the pilot first year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Voss. Not quite as brief as I expected, but never mind.
Right. I've disappointed you again, Mr. Mayor.
Is there anything you want to say to summarise, Councillor Foyt, before I ask for a proposal and recommendation for any proposal?
Yeah, I think everybody's made some valuable contributions there, and it's just really just to sort of just to answer Councillor Cleeve's question. It was put together so quickly that you know, it needed to move as nimbly as possible and as quickly as possible. Yeah, so the whole point of this proposal as well is to actually bring the town council in to actually be part of the community and to be part of the partner. They're going to be a partnership with other bodies, and we've all got communities that we represent, and I just think it's just really important that the town council has a representative on this board to be able to influence things and take things forward and get the feedback both ways. So yeah, so that's all I'm going to say.
Okay, thank you. Right, does anybody want to make a formal proposal? Councillor Howe.
Go on then. I'll give it a shot. I think I'll propose to create a new designated reserve given the strict the tough financial situation this council finds itself in. I wouldn't want to commit more than £5,000 to this personally, but I'm absolutely happy to have conversations on that from this council. I think that designated reserve should be under the control of the full council, but before it gets returned to this council, that it comes via recommendation from the Community Services Committee. That'd be great.
Do I have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Voss.
Yeah, I'm sorry, because I know you wanted me to be brief. Just to check, are we suggesting that we are now looking to have a representative from the town council? I think that was Councillor Foytchek was saying, and that would then have to be raised at some point, a formal Councillor Foytchek said it's important the town council have a representative. Is that something that we are also talking about doing, in which case we need to put in process, we have to put in motion a process to elect or appoint a representative? Is that right, or did I misunderstand?
Can I just ask Councillor Howe to clarify his proposal and reference to representatives being on any committee?
No, sorry, Councillor Foytchek was suggesting a representative not on the external committee. That was my point.
This is Councillor Howe's proposal that we're discussing at the moment.
Well, Councillor Foytchek was if this town council were to become a funder, then I imagine the position on the external board is based on that funding. In which case we have not made a decision yet, and we can't go on the board yet. But we're not precluding that from happening, soon after the next potentially after the next town council meeting. I need to check the calendar of meetings whether there's a community services meeting that's able to recommend to the next town council meeting. But that's where I would propose it next goes to.
Mr. Mayor, may I just ask,
Councillor Jenny Franklin, yes, yeah.
Can I ask a question for clarification? If we go down this route, and it sounds like a good route to go down, could I just ask the chair of finance, will this have an impact on their deliberations on what the precept might be?
Well, it will. We've made a recommendation. The papers have been set. I don't think, in terms of the procedure, I've not been around this circle. I'd have to have advice on it. There isn't, if you like, a designated fund at the moment. It's not forming part of the budget. So it would, I think, if it's passed to a committee, but no committee has a budget. So therefore a reserve would have to be set up. And I'm not sure what the procedure that would be. I would have to check with the deputy town clerk on actually how we would set this up if it were to decided that needed to be the case. But it doesn't form, it obviously doesn't form part of the budget and the recommendations that have been brought to the committee this evening.
It's kind of a bit late in the cycle. That's real difficulty. Sorry.
Yeah, Deputy Town Clerk, can I just have, I think the proposal at the moment, I'm going to summarise, but actually it's to put some money aside so that we could have money available in the next financial year to support the project if it goes ahead. Personally, I think I'd like clarification of any money that the Town Trust were putting in first before we actually got to that stage, but that doesn't stop us putting something aside. So if we put something aside, presumably we agree that decision at this point, and then we have a separate discussion in the finance discussion that's coming up shortly to actually approve the budget or any increase in precept. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, the way this, if the intention is to set up a new designated reserve to cover
cover this requirement, or potentially cover this requirement going forward. As things stand, that would have to come out of the general reserve. So the implications there are that we need to ensure that the general reserve at the end of the current financial year is at least 25% of the budgeted expenditure for the following year. So as things stand, that would be the case. The alternative would be, as part of the budget discussions, to consider increasing the precept to cover this additional funding requirement. The implications further down the line are that because the town council has run a budget deficit for the last 4 years and is planning to run another substantial deficit next year, then the impact on the general reserve in 12 months' time will be dependent on the level of expenditure that is actually incurred next year. So if savings are made elsewhere, then this designated reserve, if it is used, will still fall within the current reserves policy. But if the deficit falls in line with the budget, then it is delaying an issue until 12 months' time.
Thank you. Does anybody want to second Councillor Howe's proposal? Councillor Curtis?
Yes, I would like to second it.
In which case, can we have Councillor Rolfe? You've already spoken twice on the subject, and
I was under the impression that this would go to the Communities Committee, who would then recommend it, if it was to be recommended, because they'd look at it in more detail, to full council. So the decision would be made at the next full council. I'm sorry, that's what I...
At the moment, the proposal, I'm summarising, but is to actually create a designated reserve that would be available to the Community Services Committee to use use and discuss at the next meeting. If we don't put anything in the budget, there's no money available. That's the quick answer. So do we want to make some money available for consideration for usage later in the year? Councillor Taylor, as chair of the Community Services.
Yeah, I was just going to clarify that the next meeting is until the 6th of April. So my interpretation was very similar to Councillor Rolfe, that it would come to Community Services. However, I do understand what you've just stated, that if we don't allocate it, there is nothing there for us to discuss. So I'm still happy with Councillor Howe's proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Howe, did you want to clarify anything in your proposal?
I think this is an important decision, so I think it should come back to the. My preference would be for it to come back to full council. However, due to the timescales involved in the nature, I would be happy for this decision to be deferred to the next Community Services Committee. And if I don't know how what's the implication of not providing a firm commitment by the dates in the proposal, but if required, we can move up that Community Services meeting.
Well, if there's no money in the budget, it's pointless deferring it to Community Services because they won't have any money available.
Yeah, hence my proposal.
Yeah. So the proposal is that you set a designated reserve. Designated reserve would then be available to the Community Services Committee, and they would discuss it at their next meeting.
And can I just, sorry to go on, in terms of timings, 6th of April for the Community Services would come to full council on the 27th of April. So that timing would work out okay to be in a position to make a decision through full council. I mean, I know it's not exactly perfect, but it seems to me that it's the right way to go to make sure we are acting in a proper, considered and appropriate way within a time scale which would lead us to the 27th of April being the full council.
Yeah.
How does that sound?
27th of April sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Are we all happy with the proposal then? In which case, can we have a show of hands to vote in favour, please? Yeah, that's carried. in which case, can we move on to the next item, which was to have been to help fund the transport and economic studies and create a business case about the opening of the Stratford-upon-Avon Worcester railway line. Madam Town Clerk, I think we've got an update on this, have we?
Yes, thank you. I would like to request that this is actually not discussed, because I have had communications back and they are now fully funded. So
we don't need to discuss tonight.
No. And Mr. Mayor, may I say that Julie Crawshaw is now here?
Yes, I did say I was going to cover off the three items, because I think the next one will be relatively brief, and then we'll give Julie the opportunity. Yeah, that looks his first place. The third funding request is to rejoin WELC. Madam Town Clerk has provided all the necessary information in the papers. Is there anything else you want to add to that, Madam Town Clerk?
Yes, I would actually, Mr. Mayor. It's just something that happened over the past couple of days. I still stand by what I say, because when we were members of WELC, certainly the legal topic notes and having the assurity of professional advice at any time was always very comforting, especially when you were a clerk. But we have managed very well without it. But I was looking at the cost of that, and I was thinking, actually this is, for my mind, a no-brainer, because it is the association that would give councillors support going forward. And because of the uncertainty and unitary authorities, etc., I just thought it would be best if we were back under the umbrella. But one of the things that is I've put later on in my report is the requirement not to have a town meeting this year. And I received that information by reading one of the NALC legal topic notes, and happened to put a comment on my social network for town clerks across the country. And there was a myriad of responses immediately, with some people saying, oh, yes, you have to have it, and no, you don't have to have it, and NALC says this, and SLCC says that. So I would like that other thing removed from the meeting as well tonight, if you don't mind, because I need to find further information from you. But it just struck me that here it was me going to come to you tonight and say, please go back, because these topic notes are so wonderful, where actually there's a confliction between the SLCC and NALC. So it's not all marvellous, but I still think the basis of being a member outweighs the fact that we're not at that price.
Does not making a decision tonight cause us any issues should we want to join? We don't need to budget for it, do we? If town council approved, you could do it under your delegated powers anyway.
I could, yeah.
So we're suggesting we defer this item until next town council?
Not really, no, because it was the end of January. We've got to subscribe.
So what are you proposing we do tonight?
That you agree that we'll become WELC members.
Oh, right, okay. My personal view is, if Madam Town Clerk feels it's worthwhile, then it definitely will be. Do I have a proposer for that to join? Councillor Voss, do we have a seconder? Councillor Cleave, and all those in favour?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yep, carried. Yep, thank you.
Well done.
All right. In that case, I'm going to welcome Julie Crawshaw to the meeting. Julie, you there? You've been in and out of the waiting room a few times, and I wasn't sure whether you were having problems at all.
Oh.
But,
I've had so many problems tonight, and actually it's still really unstable. So can you hear me okay?
Yeah. I can hear you. You don't seem to be synced with your video, but never mind.
I'm not, that could be the least of my problems. Let me see. Let's try it, but I'm not guaranteeing anything. Is that all right?
Yeah, fine. Yes, go on then. Yeah.
I'm going to share this presentation with you. I'm going to share the screen. Here we go. Can you all see that?
Yep.
Can I see that? No. Bear with. Hang on. Right. Can you still see the main presentation? Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Where am I? Okay. So. Right, so the County Council's been working hard to find a way to work out how much work's going to happen in Stratford in the next 1.5 to 2 years. And it became evident a few months ago that we're going to have a lot of works happening and that we needed to have a very sort of cohesive way of working out how we were going to do that. And so we have worked together to program all the works, and this presentation is basically, it's an unusual presentation. We don't normally do this, we don't normally go out to different councils, but we felt that it was necessary on this occasion. So now it's gone black. Has it gone black for you?
Yes, it does for the moment.
Oh no. Oh, nothing is working. It's not responding. It says it's not responding. Everything has broken tonight. Oh, here we go.
Oh, you're
Is
back.
it back?
You're back. Yep.
Yeah. Good. Right, so we want to show you what we're doing and why we're doing it, the impact on the network and the things that we've looked at to mitigate to produce the final programme. Yeah. So I can't, and sort of, there are many schemes more than normal. So we have, and it's because there's been so much development in the town. Most of these schemes are Section 278 schemes, which, as you know, are schemes that require highway works as part of their planning consent. And we have 12 of those going in, all in and around Stratford. We have maintenance schemes, we have one capital scheme, we've got some traffic controls and a bridge maintenance scheme to the underside of Clopton Bridge. And that's the stuff that we're doing. There are other WCC schemes that may also take place and more maintenance work and also emergency work too. And all the time, other schemes will be coming online as money is available. And in addition to us doing works, there'll also be third-party people doing works, and that includes Highway England for things on the A46, which we don't have any dates for yet. The scheme that you know about, the Fisherman's Car Park. And Virgin Media and any other statutory utilities, that kind of thing, they may bob in and out as well. So we've got a lot of works going on in a very short period of time. So the 278 works, as you know, are required to make sure that all the new housing development and other developments that are going in and around Stratford are safe and they mitigate the additional impact that new development brings. So we've got a lot of homes going in, you can see that. And other scheme benefits are to the Birmingham Road, which is my scheme, which is the only single capital budget scheme that's coming from Warwickshire County Council into Stratford. I think it's widely, we discussed this before, haven't we, at a couple of meetings ago, but the Birmingham Road scheme is a highly welcome scheme, but again, it's a very long linear piece of roadworks coming on a major artery into town. Right, so these are where the schemes are. There's a lot of schemes going on all around the area. So and these are, you can see how many there are, and how many, they're all coming in from all different directions. Some of them are very small, some are sort of very small, like the Stratford Garden Centre is a sort of 278 scheme for a sort of turning lane. Others are really quite significant schemes, such as the Eastham Road roundabout, the Wildmoor roundabout, Shipston Road roundabout. Then there'll be other things like the Western Power, which statutory utilities are always quite tricky to make sure that we carry out proper traffic management for them. Little tiny schemes like refurbishing the bollards on Mere Street and Henley Street. But you can see there's a lot of different schemes there. And the trouble is, as you know, if we close one road, it means that another major road coming into Stratford is very heavily congested. And that's bad normally, but we've got all these schemes going on in a very short period of time. So you can imagine how difficult it has been to programme. So that's how we've programmed it. just a quick show through of all what we've tried to do is make sure that on each road that's having serious works carried out, we make sure that another road is not having other major works. So we've had to play this dance around how we have works going on in and around Stratford without conflicting unduly with the network, but also with each other. This took weeks to work out how to do this, and the message I'm trying to get across is that we haven't thrown this together thoughtlessly. We know it's going to be really quite difficult for some months, and we have tried our very best to time it as much as possible. You can see from that Gantt chart that my project, the first phase of Birmingham Road, starts in March, but other small schemes have come on stream. Codex Roundabout right at the top on the Camden Road has already commenced. This is talking about the schemes with less impact. These can be managed through off-peak traffic signals and diversions, and they're programmed to ensure they don't conflict with each other. These are the smaller ones. So again, these are, there's still quite a lot of them, but hopefully we can put these in and around the big schemes without compromising either scheme. These are the ones that have the really big problems. So Camden Road is by far the worst diversion when needed. I think that, there we go. I love this picture. This is a diversion required when you're on Camden Road, and the smart amongst you will notice that we go through 3 counties. And if you remember that we had quite a recent problem with, was it the gas down by the Camden Road near the Waitrose end. And the problems we had there with the diversions were really quite difficult. And we need to make sure that the diversion sort of equals the status of the road that it currently carries, and that there aren't any small bridges or anything else that's difficult. So it has to be an equal sort of road. And on this case, if we close the Camden Road, we do end up doing remarkable things like having a 3-county diversion. So I'll just come back up again to that. So Camden Road, we try and avoid as far as we can. But the Stratford thoroughfares, Ulster Road, Birmingham Road, Evesham Road, Shipston Road, we know what they're like. Even if we close one of those roads, we're all very well acquainted with the impacts that they have on the major other arteries into the town. So we've had to be very careful how we programme each of those works. This, of course, is not mentioning the 4 Highway England schemes, which we don't have any control over really, and don't know where they're going to come online. So these are the schemes with more impact. These will take weeks, sometimes months to achieve. Some are really very large schemes. And you'll be very well acquainted with the roundabouts that Wildmoor and Evesham Road and the Shipston Road roundabout changes. They're not going to be done quickly, and they will need quite significant traffic management. But we're doing our best to make sure that that is minimised. So what we've done to do this is we've got everyone together at the County Council who has anything to do with any scheme anywhere in Stratford to provide a workable timetable. And we've required that that many schemes, for example, the roundabout Shipston and Evesham roundabouts, aren't done concurrently. We've talked to developers to work out what they can do and when they can do it. And it's worth remembering that their 278 agreements or 106 agreements with the district council and ourselves are sort of often time constrained, so that they have to build a slip road or a roundabout by the, for example, 100th house that's been built. So often they want to get on with their development, and their own development is dictating when they have to have their roundabout built. So we have been working with the district council as well to see if we can find a way of saying, well, do we have to pursue that particular condition in that time frame? So we've been quite creative with finding ways around those sort of things. We've also worked, I mean, the developers want their projects built, so they've been helpful and they've been helpful with us. And we've also been consulting with the Business Improvement District. We had a seminar with the district and county council members. It says town council there, but I mean the county council. And anyone else that will have any kind of stake or input into what we do. And we've done this really, especially after our previous encounter with the gasworks on the Camden Road diversion, where we got a lot of stick. It wasn't a very happy experience for many people. That's the Gantt chart for schemes with more impact, which is probably simpler to see. I can let you have the slides for this if that helps at all.
Yes, please. Yeah, if you send them to Sarah and she'll circulate them to all the councillors. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot to take in, and I think I also ought to mention that, as with any Gantt chart in a programme, it's subject to change, and Codex, for example, has already got some 2-week problem. So these, there are some, these have programmed in, but if we have any problems anywhere, it might be that other things slip, and that is the nature, unfortunately, of Gantt charts, which is why I'm always a bit wary about putting them out as a final document, because Gantt charts are never a final document, they're always a work in progress, as you know, I'm sure.
I understand that the Gantt chart is a moving feast, but it's important to understand the lines which identify that a certain scheme can't start until a previous scheme has ended. That's probably the key takeaway here. Yeah.
Those are dependencies, and those are because they are being done by the same developer in effect. So so that the actual dependency lines, the black arrows, are because of that. Other schemes are programmed just to not conflict with others. They're independent schemes of each other, but they've been designed by us not to conflict. So.
Yeah.
So what else could affect that programme? Well, if we have any emergencies, heaven forbid, any bridges washed away or any emergency schemes, when you build things, especially in the ground, things happen like archaeology or whatever you find. You don't necessarily always know what you're going to find. There will sometimes be delays to works, even with utilities. Developers, COVID, Brexit and materials, who knows, flooding, there's myriad things that could go wrong. And we're always in that position with any kind of construction process. Communication, interaction, I tried to, I don't want to say hair's running, but I also want to make sure that people are aware of what's going on. I think it's not unreasonably, Joe was quite dismayed by the fact that we think we're coming out of COVID, and then we're going to be sort of put in a position where we are having lots of roadworks, and it is absolutely not ideal. I mean, what would have been ideal is to have known this, well, we wouldn't have known, obviously, but having been able to have done these works now would have been absolutely fantastic, because we would have had a very unusually quiet time. As it is, we've just had news, obviously, that the River Festival and the Motoring Festival, and I think something to do with the birthdays celebrations, are going to be certainly either cancelled or minimised, which saves us a problem. It means that we can more easily use that time. I mean, I wouldn't say I'd much rather have the festivals, but that's something we can use. But we are trying to keep abreast of all of the different things that are going to be happening and keep in touch with the biggest stakeholders in town. When it comes to individual projects, we always communicate those anyway to local people. So, for example, with my project starting in March, I'm going to be letter dropping everybody who's directly affected by that in the next week or two. I thought it'd be useful just to whiz through what some of these schemes like, and this is just a quick whiz through, just to make you just so that people realise the scale of some of these projects. Slightly weird isometric drawings and sketches, but you'll get the idea. So there's a new junction here off the Ulster Road. This is the Evesham Road roundabout, which and you'll notice that the main bit of roundabout is offline. So it's not on the existing carriageway, and that's helpful because anything that's done offline doesn't require traffic management. It's just done quietly in the background, and the stuff that will actually cause problems is actually when we are working in a live carriageway. So when I showed you those Gantt charts before, yes, they might be 4-month, 5-month periods of work, but they won't all be subject to traffic management. The only bits subject to traffic management are the live bits, the online bits, and this is a good example of that. This is the Wildmoor roundabout at the other end of the new bit of link. And then Codex, which is on site now, further out of town, so it's near Quinton, but you can see that it's mostly online. This is the turning junction for Freshfields Nursery. Another majorly offline one, the Camden Road to the new Longmarston Airfield site. Stratford Garden Centre want a turning lane. Interesting, they asked for that to happen. We were talking to all the businesses to see what would suit them in terms of timing, and they said they'd like it done in the summertime, about June or July, which surprised me because I thought it would be busy for them then, but that's when they thought it would be least impactful for them. So we acquiesced and said yes to that. And then these are the new roundabouts for the Shipston Road. Clopton Road Bridge, the new traffic signal arrangements. And more traffic signals. This is the scheme that's going to start in March, which will hopefully be not too impactful. It's mostly going to be it'll be live camera frame most of the time, nearly all the time, and works between 9 and 4. So it's going to be it's not going to be too impactful, but this bit maybe because it's a much longer stretch, and we are having a link road going into Tesco's, and let's be honest, it's a very busy part of the road. We discussed this before. Here we go, long old stretch of road, really long. There we go. I think that's it. So the takeaway from this is we really have tried to think about it. We know it's going to be really impactful, and we apologise for that, but we will do our very best to mitigate anything we can do. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Julie. We've got, yes, you will have some questions. Councillor Rolfe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to kind of back up what Julie has just said about things change, and she probably doesn't even know about this yet, but I've just been notified at about 4 o'clock this afternoon that the middle of April, the whole of Knights Lane, which is the link between the Loxley Road and the Tiddington Road, will be closed for 7 weeks. No,
I didn't know that.
Great. Well, there you go. And that's how it can change. So that's kind of massive, really. Talk to Stephen Rawson, Julie. I'm having a little bit of a battle with him at the moment. But yeah, that's massive, and that's how things can change. It's all to do with the developer. It's 278 works. Nothing we can do. It has to be done.
Thank you. Councillor Howe.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you for coming here this evening, and thank you for your perseverance with your internet issues. Yeah, thank you for staying on. That was very insightful. Just a couple of questions from me. I think we had some correspondence from your last meeting on whether the designs for the capital project were on the county council website. Have they been approved by the technical people?
No, still not. I could be on side to this rate for the technical approval. We are hopefully going to. It's hopefully being resolved this week. Last minute, there were some very, very tiny issues that they are resolving before I go live. I don't want to.
Very good. And just in terms of the section 278s, are they? I think last time you said that they had that the capital project was most likely to be delayed based on those because there's no prior agreement to it. Yeah. Is that still the case, and is that the thing that's probably going to be shifted back in your Gantt chart if more issues come online?
The only project on that Gantt chart that had any flexibility or any gift from ourselves was that project. Everything else has got some sort of defined issue with associated planning consent or whatever. That said, there is obviously also a political imperative. Just because it's the most amenable to move doesn't necessarily want to do it because we really want to do it. So it's possible that we, at the moment we have phase 1 and phase 2. Well, it might well be that we do phase 2 in other chapters and we will. It might be that's the quickest way of getting the whole thing done, because we can just plod bits in as and when we need to do them, rather than doing phase 2. You can follow with a very long linear bit. If you do it in one go, it might be harder to do them.
Julie, you sound like you're coming underwater a bit, but I think I got the gist of it. So thank you.
Yes. Councillor Curtis. Unmute David, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Julie. Thanks very much for that. I think it's the second time I've sat through and listened, but it's always very informative. Thank you. I've got one query and one comment, really. The Evesham Road, Borden Hill roundabout. The map you showed the roads going onto the Luddington Road. Now, I'm getting a few queries from various cycleway groups concerned about how cycle paths are going to circumnavigate that route. The map you showed doesn't show a roundabout by the racecourse. And I just wondered, rather, if we could take that offline, if you could let me know to whom I should speak, so I can get more details about that particular junction. As I say, the various cycling groups concerned about that. And just my other comment, I noticed on the Gantt chart, and I think I did pick this up before, I'm afraid, the road from the Wildmoor down to the Borden Hill, it says it's the dreaded Southwest Relief Road, which
it isn't.
Not.
No, it's not. I didn't do
imagination. So I just wonder if that could be retitled.
Yeah, I will. I'll make sure that's out. That's a glitch.
Perhaps if you could email me your contact details for the other, that'd be great, Julie. Thanks very much indeed.
Councillor Boss.
Yes, Julie, thank you. I think we'd all agree that you approach perhaps Stratford's most sensitive subject with enormous positivity and good humour, and it's brilliant. Couple of comments. It just shows how long it takes for something to happen, because if I remember correctly, the slip road into the Birmingham Road was originally proposed by a previous town councillor, Clive Thomas, many years ago. And it shows that a good idea is always a good idea, and maybe when we rename it, we could rename it the Clive Thomas Slip Road. You never know. On another note, though, I'm surprised that none of this includes works to Bishopton Bridge, which I know is not in my area, but it's an enormously sensitive area with all the traffic. And I think Councillor Alcock sort of pricked her ears up there. This is going to be under it's bad enough when one cut, I go over, I close my eyes. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do when you're driving, but it's an enormously sensitive bridge and roadworks. And I'm not convinced by anything I've read that it is strong enough structurally or will take the volume of traffic. Are there any plans, even in a nascent form, for that bridge? Thank you.
Okay, I don't know, but I will find out and let you know. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Alcock. Unmute.
Right, sorry. Yes, I was just going to answer Councillor Voss quickly. The bridge will have traffic lights on it because that's the way to solve all problems, isn't it? So it's going to have traffic signals on, so you can no longer meet cars on the other side of it. Whether it is strong enough to withstand the traffic, well, we all know it isn't, because the report said it wasn't. And the fact it now has construction vehicles going over it, which is actually against the conditions of the development, yet it's happening on a daily basis. Whether it with house, I really couldn't answer it, Councillor Voss. But yes, we do all know that the bridge needs a lot of work doing to it to withstand the additional traffic that 500 houses on Bishopton Lane will produce. But we'll see what happens in the future on that one.
Thank you. Right. Right. Thank you, Julie, for coming along. It's yes, your internet just about survived. That was okay. and really informative. But like I say, if you could share your PowerPoint presentation, I think it will be a useful reference document for councillors in the future. So thanks for your attendance. Excellent. Thank you. Before we move on, I'm going to ask for a 5-minute comfort break, please. So back in 5 minutes.
Yeah, Tony, my iPad has gone off completely, but I've managed to get it on my phone for a little while. I don't know how long it's going to last for.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Bill.
It's really frustrating. Super fast broadband for all, eh? Except for us in Halford.
It's just the name of the service.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, we're just waiting for councillors Voss and Howe to return at the moment. Yep. Good. Right, we are all back, in which case we will continue with item 17.2, which is to agree the proposed 2021-22 draft budget and precept requirement for the ensuing year. First of all, can I just thank the Deputy Town Clerk for all the work that he's done on preparing the budget. We're on the 8th draft, and I know it's been a difficult challenge, so thanks for that. There's obviously a comprehensive report. Is there anything you want to say first, Deputy Town Clerk, before I ask Councillor Coles to comment?
I haven't really got anything to add to the report.
Yeah. Okay, in which case, can I ask Councillor Coles, the chair of the Finance Committee, to lead on this item, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you can see, we had a very long and involved and detailed discussion in the last Finance Committee meeting. The Deputy Town Clerk provided us with the 7th draft of the budget, which was created under the new scheme of the committees setting their own budgets. Obviously, the passing year, the year gone, has been an extremely complicated one, which has certainly made a huge difference in terms of the budget for the council. And part of the discussion that we had at the last Finance Committee meeting was to look at the effect that our plans were having on the reserves. The Deputy Town Clerk very kindly created us an 8th draft, which you should get some sort of medal of endurance, if nothing else, which has taken into account some of the caution and reserves and set-asides. They don't affect the actual budget committee's planned spend, but they do give a picture of the planned expenditure and also have had an effect in reducing our drain on the reserves for the oncoming financial year. Obviously, it is quite hard to draw a projection of the income when you do not know what the financial year, the year in general for the rest of the world and our lives is going to bring. So we are recommending caution, time to see where the world and Stratford are going. Obviously, the effect on our income from markets other than the precept will be affected by how things go. And going forward, we are going to look at how things go. Obviously, one of our objections in the longer term was to look at income generation from things like the town hall, and that is going to be very much dependent on how quickly things start going back to normal for the town. With it, having had that discussion, we then looked at how we would develop or how we would look at what we were doing with the precept for the upcoming year. And this was discussed a great deal. We are aware that there's been work on the town hall, the drop in the income, but we felt that a small increase in the precept was justifiable. But we felt that in view of the financial impact of lockdown, COVID, uncertain jobs, it would not be fair to have a large economic impact on households in the town. Many people may well be struggling with income, the social impact and the results of the extended time people have had to have away from work. So we are suggesting that the cost of the Band D household should be, we're recommending to you that the precept should be increased by 2.5%, which is an increase of 97 pence from 38.89 to 39.86, and that would give us a an increase of I think it's 13,000 or thereabouts. And obviously one of the issues that came up is that there is some unexpected work to be done by Holy Trinity Wall and what have you. Anyhow, so at the moment, the papers we have before you are the original draft 7 budget from the town clerk, and we also have the draft 8 budget, which includes the reduction in well, not so much reserves, but caution in some of the budgets, so that we have a clearer view of the actual proposed expenditure. So we are bringing to you budget number 7, budget number 8, and a proposed increase of 2.5% in the precept. And what I would be asking you tonight is to decide which of those 2 budgets we decide as a council to go forward with. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Coles. Has anybody got any questions for Councillor Coles on the point to rising? And please, can we all only speak once if possible? Councillor Voss.
No, I would like to thank, as Councillor Coles already done, the Deputy Town Clerk, and I'd also like to thank Councillor Coles for some very clear leadership and chairpersonship from a very difficult finance meeting. And I should like to go straight into proposing that we accept draft budget 8 with a 2.5% increase in the precept. Thank you.
I'm going to give other people the opportunity to speak before we have a proposal. Thank you, Councillor Voss. Councillor Cleave.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question for the Deputy Town Clerk, if possible. Don't want to put you on the spot. Do you know roughly on the 2 different figures per head what that would come to? So the 1.5% and the 2.5%, the increase in essentially pounds or pennies or whatever it is. Sorry if that puts you on the spot.
Just bear with me, sorry.
It was 97 pence at band, an increase of 97 pence at band D, so that would be per household. So per head, it would depending who you were including in your.
Well, per bill payer, I guess, per house.
Yeah, the bill payer.
Sorry, the 1.5% increase would be a rise of 59 pence.
59 pence. And
per
sorry,
bandy.
what was the 2 and the 2.5 was?
Is 97 pence.
97 pence. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Alcock.
I actually had the same question, but can I just absolutely clarify the 90 no, oh God, I give up. The 97 pence is per year. It's not a per month on the bill, is it? Is it 97 pence per year?
For a band D property, yes.
Yes. So it's per year, not per month. But I just want to absolutely make that clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? No. I think it's worth just making the point to people who might be watching that the move to the new committees was new this year, and the whole concept of individual committees setting their own budgets is very much a learning curve, and has perhaps led us into some of the overspend that we might see. And that's a lesson that we need to learn for future years, to make sure that when setting budgets for individual committees, they are very aware of the impact that's going to have on the reserves. Right, we have 2 things to vote upon. Do we want to go with the increase to the precept first? Do I have a proposer? Councillor Voss.
Councillor Coles, do you want to propose as chair? I'm happy to.
Yes, I'm happy to, Mr. Mayor. Can I propose that we take the recommended 2.5% increase to the precept?
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Voss, thank you. Can we have a show of hands voting in favour of that proposal? Thank you. I think that was unanimous, but sorry, but just I've learned a lesson. Is there anybody opposed to that proposer? Can they show? Or anybody who wishes to abstain? No, carried unanimously. Thank you. On to the next one. Councillor Coles, do you want to formally propose?
Yes, of course. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I propose that we accept the, propose 2021-22 draft budget version 8 as for the ensuing year.
Do I have a seconder to that? Councillor Voss, thank you. And again, can I have a show of hands of those in favour? And just to be on the safe side, does anybody object? Or anybody wish to abstain? No, it was carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. Right, can we move on to item 17.3, which is to receive and adopt the calendar of meetings for 21-22. Has anybody got any comments on the calendar? Is Councillor Ian Fradgley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As usual, we do have issues with the calendar of meetings where as far as the planning committee is concerned, and I have noticed one or two things on there that I'm not quite happy about. But to be honest, I've been so busy I've got to sit down with the calendar, the real calendar, to work it out. So I haven't done anything about that yet. But I presume that if I wanted to shuffle something, then I would come through Sarah and Lisa.
Thank you. I think we're all aware of the need to align our planning consultative committee meetings with the district council. And yes, that needs to happen. My one question or concern to the town clerk is whether that would mean any of the other scheduled committee meetings being moved, or can we be happy that they will all be fixed in the calendar?
Well, the simple answer to that, Mr. Mayor, is I don't know. It depends on literally what has to be shifted. At the moment, that calendar works, but if we've got to move it for planning, then I think I'd have to reissue it. And perhaps that is something that you can vote on tonight. That may very well be necessary, rather than just have to keep bringing it back to council.
Right, in which case I'm going to propose that we vote on the calendar being a provisional set of dates, but subject to amendment as and when changes to the planning consultative committee meetings are identified. Do I have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Cleave, thank you. We have those in favour? Thank you. I'm sure that's everybody, but just to be on the safe side, does anybody object? Anybody abstain? No, thank you. Unanimous. Thank you. Item 17.4 is to note the report on the temporary cessation of the requirement for annual town meetings. Unless anybody has got any comments, I would just suggest that we accept that that's noted by the town council.
Noted.
No, anybody got any comments to make? No, in which case noted. Thank you. Item 17.5 is to approve a change to standing orders. There are two separate items. One I think is because of EU regulations. I'm looking at Madam Town Clerk just to give a nod. And one is to enable us to receive tenders by email rather than by post. You've got the actual wordings in front of you. Can I do them? Can we do them both together? Unless anybody objects. So all those in favour of the changes to standing orders? Could you show of hands, please? Thank you. That's everybody. Yeah, unanimous. Thank you. Item 17.6 is to approve a change to the council's reserves policy. Councillor Coles, do you want to lead on this, or is it one for Deputy Town Clerk? Could you unmute, please? Councillor Coles, could you unmute?
Sorry, I shuffled the I shuffled the paper away. So you can have me shuffling inelegantly in the background, or you can ask the town clerk. Give me just one moment. 17. Right. Yes. This is in line. It's following on from government guidance and previous discussions. Basically, that the general reserve should be linked to our budgeted expenditure rather than the annual precept, or essentially our income. So we have been advised that the general reserve figure should be, depending on the size of the council, within a certain number of months of our spending requirements. And for us, that would be for 3 months at least, for 25%. So that is what we're recommending. Is that not right? Yes.
That's fine. Yes. And just to clarify, in terms of the monetary size of the reserve, it doesn't make a great deal of difference for this year. It's not just clarifying the principle. Yeah. Okay. Do we can I have a formal proposal for that, please, Councillor Coles? Presumably.
Yes. Can I please propose that we amend our reserves policy so that the reserve should be linked to budgeted expenditure and should be for a reserve of at least 3 months of the budgeted expenditure.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Howe, thank you. Show of hands to approve and accept. Yeah, thank you, everybody. Unanimous. Thank you. Right, item 18 is the written reports by representatives to outside bodies. Thank you, Councillor Taylor, for your work in preparing these in advance. And I think we can just take these as read unless anybody has got any questions arising. No. Thank you. Just as a matter of interest, Councillor Taylor, I saw 2 people playing table tennis on the ping on the table on Shottery Fields in 2 foot of snow almost, and they were wearing gloves and social distancing, but they were actually in use.
Amazing, considering they're not supposed to be using them at the moment.
White ball, Mr. Mayor?
No, I think it was an orange ball, to be fair.
Oh, right, you're checking what the colour of the balls were.
Thank you. Item 19, does anybody have, for verbal ward reports, does anybody want to notify us?
Had his hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Mayor, sorry.
Sorry. Councillor Ian Fradley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to ask Councillor Taylor, as far as Stratford Bid is concerned, is he getting anywhere with the enforcement of the buskers code?
It has been discussed with him again recently, Councillor Fradley. I have an impending meeting with him over the next couple of days, but as far as I'm aware at this present moment in time, I don't think it has progressed any further. I think he's obviously prioritising lobbying other issues for extra funding for businesses and putting together plans for potential recovery from when we actually exit COVID. But it is on my list to discuss with him tomorrow, and I will update you when I've spoken to him.
Thank you. Councillor Warren Howells.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to briefly mention our environmental project. We've set up a group called Stratford Goes Wild. It's an initiative across the whole of the town. There are lots of residents who basically want to get involved in environmental projects. Might be very small things in their gardens, you know, all sorts of different sort of environmental ideas, but they're working in disparate groups. So we thought it might be a good idea to join them together so they can share ideas and experiences and advice. So it's a WhatsApp group. We've called it Stratford Goes Wild. So if anybody in your wards that might have a project that might like to discuss with other people, if you'd like to put them in touch with me, then I can add them to our group. It's just some information, really. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Alcock.
As I briefly mentioned earlier, Mr. Mayor, there's been a lot of disruption with the Bishopton 500 development. I've been in daily contact with residents and with the district council, and of course with great support and very welcome support from Councillor Fradgley as the county councillor for the area. I am hoping things are going to start resolving. Either that, or would it be really bad of me if I wish for snow every day for the next 5 years?
Yes, it would be bad of you.
Make my life so much easier, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Councillor Cleave.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just wanted to, for anybody who is watching, to remind that Stratford Support Group is still going on, and therefore if there's any, you know, we've still got volunteers who are shopping, doing groups who are shopping for people who need it. So just a reminder that it's there, and if anybody needs support to contact us at Stratford Town Support. And I just wish to thank all the volunteers and everyone who's working so hard behind the scenes to make this happen as well.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Cleave. Excellent point, well made. Good. Right, item 18. Oh no, item 19. Does any councillor have any ward reports on important issues affecting the town that they want to bring to this council meeting? Councillor Rolfe.
Yes, I think you will have all, certainly the district councillors, that are town councillors, has been told today about the refurbishment of Bridge Street and Sheep Street. I can't offhand remember the dates, but I think it's the second week in February and the third week in February. We've brought this forward from April. I think it's really important we get it done, you know, while the roads are shut. So yes, Bridge Street and Sheep Street will be the roads will be redone.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Foytek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it's just to say that the Clopton Community Action Group's arts funding is there's a scheme going out with a body called Make Lunch, and they're delivering meals to families during February. And there's an arts pack, colouring books as well that's going out to those families to help them during the February half term.
Thank you. Nobody else, in which case item 20, Madam Town Clerk's verbal report. Anything to say?
You'll be pleased to hear that I have nothing further to say.
In which case, item 21 is the date and venue of the next town council meeting, which will take place at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, the 30th of March, or at 6:30 if it's physically possible to hold in the town hall. I suspect that is very unlikely, and we will still be Zooming at 6 o'clock. Thank you. Can I thank you all for your attendance tonight, and to thank you all people who have been watching the live stream. Hope you found it informative and interesting, and stay safe. Thank you.